authors. My name is Brenna. I am the social media manager at Palmetto. Thank you guys so much for joining along on our YouTube channel today. We have a really exciting expert here with us today that's going to talk with us about book marketing. This is Mr. Rick Joyce. He has been in the publishing and book marketing industry for 25 years now. He joins us with a ton of knowledge on book publishing, marketing strategy, and utilizing marketing tools to help your book see success. So we're super excited to be able to sit down with him today. And remember, if you like this video, if you check out our other videos and you want to get involved with the community that we've got going on YouTube here, definitely like, comment, and subscribe for this video and more so you can kind of stay up to date with what we are doing over on our YouTube channel. Rick, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself and tell the folks at home a little bit about you?
Sure. Thanks, Brenna. Right. So I've been working as a strategist and a marketer for a long time, primarily in content businesses. So books, magazines, newspapers, live entertainment, music, you name it. And starting a good 25 years ago, maybe a little longer, I had as clients some of the larger publishers, a lot of the big five: Simon Schuster, HarperCollins, folks like McGraw Hill, Disney, and the like. And then about 20 years ago, I became the chief marketing officer for Perseus Books, which was a private equity-backed independent publisher that became, over the 15 years or so that I was there, the sixth largest publisher and publishing services company in the US. And so we not only published books that I was involved in marketing, but we also had clients for our sales, distribution, and digital marketing services. And that was eventually 400 or 500 independent publishers. So I've seen a lot of books, I've seen a lot of publishers, I've seen a lot of categories, and I've seen the evolution of book marketing from a primarily sort of publicity only game to one where a wide variety of digital marketing approaches are possible and social media is standard, and where authors have more and more input and influence and control over their ability to promote their titles than they used to back in the day, as we would say. And so it's an exciting time, actually, to be an author as well as someone involved in book marketing and promotion, because much is possible.
Like I said, you bring a wealth of knowledge when it comes to different kind of strategies and tactics that authors can use. I know one strategy that you've particularly talked about that you think works really well for authors, and one that I love as well because it's something that we offer here at Palmetto, is author websites. Let's chat a little bit about those and kind of how authors can utilize those types of platforms to keep their readers up to date.
Yeah, so an author website is incredibly important. If you've written one book, perhaps you would think maybe I don't need one. But if you've written more than one, you definitely do. And a website is houses a number of things. So first of all, it has who you are and what's your bio and what's your background. However you want to share that, picture of you, where you live, and sort of the biographical real you. A name on a book is not a fully fleshed out human, but there's a lot to you as an author that might interest a reader. If you're writing a series of mystery books that take place in restaurants, it might interest the reader to know that you worked in restaurants for 25 years, or that you were a food reviewer, or whatever. Secondly, obviously, you can promote your books individually. So you can have a page or a section on the website for each of your books. What is the book? What's the synopsis of it? Where does it take place? Where did you get the idea for it? How can they buy it? And you can have links to and should have links to retail, whether that's Amazon or your local bookstore, or any of the various ways and places that you'd like to direct people who are interested in buying your book, potentially your favorite local bookstore. Thirdly, if you're out in the world promoting your book, or or being visible in the world, you can tell people where they can see you and find you. You might be doing a book signing at a bookstore. You might be going to a con. Let's say you've written a series of YA books and you're going to like Rose City Comic Con in Portland, Oregon in September, or you're going to an anime convention in the fall, and you're going to be doing signings, or you're just going to be on a panel. You can say you will be there. You can, if you have other things that you do that are public, you can promote them because you're a whole person. You're more than just the book you wrote or the books you've written. And so, and then very importantly, if you are active on social media, you can connect your social media to the website and the website to social media. So whatever you're posting, whatever your content is, also can drive people to your website and vice versa. And so I think the real guts of a author website, and it's not to be fancy in any meaningful way, it could even be one long scrolling page, is who are you, picture of you, what are you about, what are your books, what are they about, where can they be bought, make that easy for people. Where can people find you or see you if they want to, ask you questions or see you on a panel, and where and what are what's your social posture if you have one. And listen, if you don't have any of those things, you don't put it on the website. But it turns out that having a website and all the content I've described is creates what we'll call metadata, which is things that search can turn up. So if someone's looking for, I'm looking for a mystery book set in restaurants because my mom loves mysteries and she's a foodie, well, the chances that you and your site might turn up get higher. And so it aids organic discovery as well as people being referred to your site either by social media or by other ways they've come across you. So I do think it's pretty important for anybody who has a book they want to get discovered or read or sold to have a website. There are plenty of tools to create them easily. If you you don't have to hire someone and spend money, or you can. Palmetto does an amazing job helping authors with these kinds of things. And so there's all levels of play here, whether it's something quite simple or maybe something more involved because you have lots to share. You have other content, maybe you have short stories, maybe you have other kinds of things to share with your audience beyond the books you've written, because maybe you're a magazine writer as well and you can post links to your articles. So I totally second Brenna's kind of take at Palmetto's on the importance of having an author website that fits who you are and what you're about.
I'd like to add too, that's another great feature for an author website is if, you have the time and you see like there, might be benefit for your readers, start a newsletter, have people sign up, start to get those emails. And then when there is updates, when you're traveling places, when you have a new book coming out, you've already got that list of emails and you're starting to build that community to say, hey, I've got this coming up, I've got this coming out. So it is definitely an undertaking. And we tell authors all the time, author websites aren't for everyone. You've got to do it consistently. You have to post updates. And like you said, if you only have one book and you're not doing too much with it, or you don't want to market it, or you don't exactly, then it won't be for you. Same way with social media or other things like that. But they can definitely have a lot of benefits as well if it's something that you can keep up with and you want that for your author community.
Yeah, the analogy I like to use is, look, it's social media and a website, it's a garden and you have to weed it and water it and tend to it. They tend not to be good for set it and forget it. You could do that if your aims are simply that if someone's looking for you, they can find out, here's your contact information or here's your bio. But to get the most value out of it, you do want to, as you say, create content for it, keep people engaged, respond to inquiries, respond to posts on your social media, like them, say thank you, provide an answer. And if you're not going to do that kind of gardening, you have to ask yourself whether, why are you why are you visible digitally? Because you can frustrate people as well.
if someone were to come to you that's published a book and they say, where do I even start? What should I be posting? Do I just talk about my book? What do people want to see from me? What would you kind of say is the best place to start, and kind of talking about, consistency, watering that garden every day? What are things that authors can post about, or how can they kind of jump into social
In
media?
fact, I would say to authors, if all you do is promote your book online, you're potentially going to bore people pretty quickly. And in fact, one of the best things you can do as an author is you're someone who has opinions and uses words and has ideas, because if you didn't have those three things, you wouldn't have written a book. And so use those. So if you're a cookbook author, yes, you can share recipes from your cookbook, but you can also tell stories about, restaurants you eat out on vacation and what you think of them. Other cookbooks you've read, or food authors or food blogs that you follow, and promote them. In fact, it's incredibly important and kind of fun to be in the business of discovering great things for other people, not just promoting your things. So one of the things that gets you a following and gets other people to promote you is when you say, oh my God, I just was reading this food blog and I love how they treat Southern cooking, and there's much less frying, and it's a healthier version of Southern cooking. Here's 2 recipes that I thought were amazing. I highly recommend this other food blog for these reasons. Then that person is likely to be able to say to you, or say about you, they're going to check you out and go like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. And also, I love what you do with your, amazing salads, or whatever your thing is. And so part of the social media strategy is not to be a one-note shill for your own product, but to take your point of view and your knowledge and your engagement with the world and share it. And that can include your travels, that can include other things that you think are amazing, your reviews, mini reviews, or enthusiasm for related things. And then people, will have reason to follow you and read what you write, because you're not just essentially an ad all day long.
Hmm.
So now where you do that and how you do that is very much has to fit you like clothes, right? Like if you're like not going to wear the spacesuit, then don't go to the moon, right? So if you're like, oh, I can post maybe once a week, and a lot of what I do, I'm an artist and my books are visual art. Well, maybe I post an image, original image once a week with some thoughts, but maybe also I kind of like or repost some other artists I like, a couple times a week, and I'm on Instagram because it's visual. Or, I like to talk, and so I'm going to be on YouTube or someplace where I can, or TikTok, where I can, with enthusiasm, be talking while I'm beating eggs or whatever my cooking thing is. Or maybe I'm a words person really, and I'm not that comfortable on camera, and maybe I should be using, Twitter, or a sort of Facebook, or some platform that I can use my words, and that's more comfortable for me. So, each of these platforms tends to have a personality, and it has to be you. The reason people follow folks on social media is for authenticity, frankly, and connection. And so you trying to be somebody else that you're not, it's not going to work well. So if you're a talker, talk. If you're a writer, write. If you're visual, you can share that, and you'd be surprised how the world will find you if you're authentic. Try to set up a schedule for yourself to create, and not just about what you're trying to
I
sell.
actually went to like a marketing social media event the other day, and the discussion came up about how social media is not always just withdrawals, withdrawals, withdrawals. It has to be
Right.
you giving deposits and withdrawals, because it's a relationship with your
Karma bank.
followers, with your readers. And that means that not only are they just buying your books and feeding into your brand, but also what do you have to offer them? Are you sharing things with them that are relatable, and maybe not selling your book, but still something that they can take away from that relationship? So whatever that looks like for you as an author, whether it's sharing recipes, other books, blogs, sharing videos, talking about current events, talking about pop culture, things that they can take away too and enjoy and get entertainment from or knowledge, success lies there as well.
Yes. If you go to like the Village in New York or the East Village, or let's say you're a trendy neighborhood in San Francisco where a lot of cool restaurants are, you'll see folks sometimes standing out with a tray with little goodies on it, and they're like, hey, have a bite, it's free. Chat. Let's chat. Where are you headed tonight? Are you on your way to the theater, or you're on your way to a show? You're coming from something? Hey, we have really great live music tonight, and also, blah, 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 blah is on the menu. Have you ever tried us? That person's engaging you and giving you something, a little tidbit, and has some personality and is out where you are. It's not asking you to come in and buy a thing and sit down and take some big risk that they may or may not like it. And so I think of social media also as being a little bit of the person with personality on the street who's sharing something, and that maybe you like it, maybe you won't, but you'll stop for a minute and consider it. And it doesn't even all have to be, as I say, your content. It can be your point of view on something, like just so part of the giving to the karma bank is, praise what's praiseworthy, like what you like, and be enthusiastic about it. Enthusiastic people do quite well. And so what enthuses you? If you're thinking about what were the inspirations for your book? Oh, I took this tour to Greece and it made me think, what a great place for a whatever story. Well, tell us about that tour to Greece. What was so exciting about it? What surprised you? What do you recommend to other people? I mean, you can whatever you can enthuse about with authentic enthusiasm, not to use the word too much, tends to be good content because it's infectious. It's people want to be around people who are engaged and sharing something they're really excited about, and that could be something really specific. It's surprising what travels well online, and so it doesn't all have to be stuff that you've labored over in your writer's shed. It can be experiences you've had in the world that are part of who you are.
Another thing that authors really struggle with when they start social media or they start to market their book on their own social channels is the variety of content that's needed to have a successful social media account or campaign. I think a lot of people are really scared by video. We definitely see the
Sure.
trends heading that way. I mean, even just to like snap a photo and put filters on it is one thing. It takes a lot of effort as well, but video is like this whole new overwhelming thing. And I think the thing is that it doesn't always have to be complex, like you say. Like it can be just simple little short videos with little catchy songs, and you just sharing, hey, this is 15 seconds of me showing you something, me talking about something, me talking about my book, whatever that looks like for you and whatever fits for you. But it really doesn't have to be anything crazy. And most of the time, people want to see more of the behind the scenes stuff. Okay, well, what does it look like a day in the life? What does it look like when you're sitting down and writing your book? Like, what does it look
Yeah.
like when you're brainstorming the characters? There's so many different ways to show people kind of who you are and what your brand is. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy. And people love the realistic behind the scenes.
Absolutely true. I would also say, like, if you're a person who does research for your books, like I've got to go to this place so that I can see what, the place is like that I'm about to write about, or if I'm a person who's digging through the library, or doing genealogical research, whatever you're doing. You don't have to be a person who feels comfortable talking on camera, although the more Zoom we all do, maybe the better more comfortable we get with that. But that doesn't mean you couldn't like have video of you, for example, poring over a mountain of books for 10 seconds, and then you could write on top of that video what I'm thinking while doing my research. When is lunch? Oh, here's a cool tidbit. Right. Wow, where did the last 15 hours go? Just whatever is true. And you don't have to be a person who talks on video to have video that's interesting. Your thoughts made manifest in words on written words, because you're a writer, can also accompany an image or accompany a piece of video, And you don't have to feel like, oh God, I hate the way I sound and I say all the time, right? I've seen authors do a thing where they're sitting with a stack of books they're signing, this one author, and it was just a video of them signing a stack of books, but then the text was what I'm thinking while signing books. And it was just like, you know, just because you have to sort of turn the brain off to sign 50 books, but on the other hand, you're still thinking. So it's like, when is lunch? And you know, if I were ambidextrous, I could do this twice as fast, or, you know, just things that have capture their attitude. And so I would argue, not argue, but I would underline what you said, that images and video are very important. But what's important is that they, you know, there's something about them, whether behind the scenes or inside your head, that you can share and make visible. But if you're not a person who feels comfortable talking like this, that doesn't mean you don't have things to share, either images or video that might be fun for other people to experience.
Big part though of being an author is all of the in-person stuff that we get to do, which can be a lot of fun, going to signings, holding events. Let's talk about how authors can kind of get out of the box thinking when it comes to events and places that readers may be gathered.
Where people who've written a book think, okay, now I have to go to bookstores and sign books. And that's the game for authors with a following. Before you get to that, you have to get to the go where people are, and make your book visible to them. And so there are, I think, a couple of very tried and true strategies for that. So whatever your book is about, it's a Civil War fiction story. Well, there are you know, reenactors and reenactments, and you can go, you know, to that. There are conventions, right? You're a foodie, and there's you know, there are you know, gatherings. You know, so one thing you can do is just show up and just talk to people, have a stack of books and in your bag, but also, you know, links, you know, whatever, a business card if you want to do that has your book on it, and the website, and engage with people. And you can just do that as a consumer, or as a, you know, just as an individual civilian, I would say, not as a consumer. A step up from that is to write to those or contact those places and say, hey, I've written some historical romance set in the Regency era of England, and you know, I'm going to be in England for the next 2 weeks, and I'm going to be in your town, and I see that you have a festival, or I see that you have a writers group or a book club or whatever, and just offer yourself. And it's really powerful, actually, for anybody who's trying to put on a convention, a book club, any kind of gathering around a topic. They need programming. You're the programming, you and your knowledge and your book. And so you'd be surprised what kind of invitations you'll get to address book clubs, get on a panel at a convention, get a table. Well, they'll say, oh, so you can set up a table if you want, you know, and engage people who care about the topic that you write about. And those things may not have anything to do primarily with books. They're around the topic of your book. But there you are, an expert in a room full of people who care about the thing you care about. And so, you know, very early on, the romance crowd figured this out. The Romance Writers of America started, you know, created an annual convention for people who write romance. And they realized that a lot of people who were coming to it were people who wanted to write romance but hadn't yet. And they started to realize that they could create a connection between the audience of readers, the audience of would-be writers, the new writers, and the experienced writers, where everybody wins. And so I would say, what is my book about, and what audiences would care about it, and where are they? Where are they within a 2-hour drive of me? And start to look at it and go like, oh, here's this thing in August. Oh, here's this other thing in September. Oh, here's this other thing in November. And reach out and say, like, I see you're having this event, and here's me, and you know, and I've written this book, and I know a lot about it, and I would just love to be a part of it. And they may say, oh, well, we're looking for a speaker, or, you can set up a table, or would you be on a panel, or, or could, come, because there'll be lots of people like you who'll be happy to talk to you. So I'm a big believer for new authors in not thinking about, I'm not saying you shouldn't contact the bookstore and say, can I do a reading? You should. But the people in the bookstore that day may or may not be the kind of people that dig what you dig. But if you can go where somebody's already convened the tribe of folks, the kinds of folks who are interested in what you're interested in, your hit rate goes way up, and their likeliness of being interested goes way up. And then you can put that date on your website, and then you can promote it on your social channel just to connect all three conversations that we're having. And now things start to happen, right? And then people see you're going, and they're like, oh, I see you're going to this, and you're speaking on that. I'd love to meet you because we do a similar thing. Or, all of the unlooked for things can happen when you make visible that you're going to be at a place talking about your book or talking about the topic. And that also means people can eventually start to contact you and go, I see you've spoken at this, and this event. Would you come to our event? And you didn't know anything about their event. So now that starts to work for you, because you made your, if you will, your schedule and your willingness to do these kinds of things visible and findable. And so that's my little speech about events, which is there's so much more. There's so many more events where you can be successful as a book author than just book events.
I had an author the other day that I sat down with, and she writes for women in their 60s. She goes to boutiques when they have little events and sets up a booth and talks to women in her own community and makes a lot of sales doing that. You can go to craft fairs, or you can go to conventions right down the street from you. You can go to, book clubs that are already being hosted. So it, again, does not have to be, this massive, widely publicized event. Most of the time, even the more intimate, the more intimate of an event it is, the more opportunity you'll have to talk to readers. Let's talk about one book in particular and kind of the story behind the story, which is the You Are a Badass book.
You and I were talking about that
bit. Yeah, tell us a little bit about that book.
Yeah, and I don't claim enormous credit around how this book grew and succeeded, but I will say I was there for this journey, and it's a very interesting example of what's possible for a book. So You're a Badass by Jen Sincero is a book that was published by Running Press, which was one of the imprints of Perseus Books a number of years ago, and it was a paperback original. So it did not come out in hardcover first, had been turned down by other publishers. And when we published it, it was sort of distinguished in part by its title, which is You Are a Badass, which is sort of direct address to somebody walking by this book, and a very bright yellow cover. And it wasn't a book that got review attention, and it wasn't, and it was a sort of a book that took a look at, and the author had read a lot of the success literature, Think and Grow Rich and The Secret, and a lot of the kind of success literature that existed at the time. So you don't have to, essentially, and then and put it in her own words as if she was your best girlfriend talking to you. So it really had a great tone. And what was interesting, and she's an incredibly hardworking person who would go to any event and speak, however small. And one of the things that was interesting about this book is it did start to, very slowly, a year in, 2 years in, it started selling like 200, 300, 400 copies a week in, week out. Like, not enormous, but like now something is happening. So and what is it? And the one thing that we discovered and that the author discovered is that sales people who were in sales organizations, somebody had found this book and thought this is a great way to motivate salespeople. And so they were quoting from it at sales conferences or buying copies and giving it out. And it wasn't something the publisher realized, or and then between the publisher and the author started to realize it was happening. And then we said, well, let's see if we can get this author booked as a motivational speaker for sales conferences for products of any kind. And so that started to be a thing that worked. And a lot of what promoting a book or any product is about is find a little thing that works, and see if you can't make it intentional or bigger. Another thing that became clear was that people were giving this book as a gift. And it started to become clear to us as publishers that people were either giving it as a gift to someone who just like had a great thing happen to them, like a promotion, but also people who were facing a setback. And the book was kind of a like, no, listen, you're a badass, you're going to bounce back from this thing. And once you realize that the book is potentially a gift, then when you talk to bookstores or when you think about how to promote it, you go to say, well, let's see if we can get into the kind of year-end gift lists that all sorts of websites and newspapers and magazines publish. Let's see if we can get it on tables for various key holidays, Mother's Day or back to school or things, graduation. And so then the book started to be marketed not just directly to the people that might find its topic interesting, but to people to give as a gift to someone in their lives. And by the time, like 4 or 5 years into this book being published and available, it made it onto the New York Times bestseller list, which is a very unusual sales pattern. And then it stayed there for years and years and years. And over time, most bookstores were carrying the book and putting it in more than one place in the bookstore. So it was in the self-help section. It was also in the bestseller list section. And then sometimes it was like on an end table that says, great gifts under $25 or things like that. And so the path of this little book that could was one of figuring out, well, who is reading it and why, and then how can we reach more people like that, whether people who are trying to motivate people who are trying to cheer up other people. This whole idea that the book was essentially finding a lot of its success because someone was handing it to someone became a part of how the book was then packaged and promoted. And that book was on the bestseller list for many years, sold for years and years. But it's a tremendous story because this was an author who really did a lot of legwork for the book, and a book that really grew over time as the author and the publisher began to understand how it behaves. And so, when you're out with your book as a new author, try to figure out who is gravitating towards it, who's vibrating, and why, and how is that book, who is it reaching? And then maybe you'll find that gives you clues to how to promote it. I recommend the book, but I also recommend that attitude, that sort of openness to discovering that the audience is other than you might think, and that you should go, let the book tell you where it wants to go.
I think that's a really cool story, and I'm glad you got to share that. So one thing, authors listening, is that Rick has agreed to chat with us about a really special Palmetto book.
Oh, yeah.
Do you want to pull out our
It's right
lovely example here? Yep. So this is Capricorn Chuck's Cool World by Palmetto author Steve Pendleton. And Rick is going to kind of tell us a little bit about this book based on its genre, some kind of marketing strategy, marketing tools.
This is quite live, mind you, because this book it's just been handed to me. But I love the kind of live opportunity of talking about book marketing, and often when you're fresh is when you can have insights or ideas. And so here I am. So this book it's a fiction book. It's a thriller of sorts because its main character is a corrections officer who starts to uncover what looks to be a very villainous plot, and that not only involves him and his family, but the FBI and corruption. And so you can look at this book and go, okay, there's like helicopters and volcanoes and a gun on the cover, as they say in the theater. I think Chekhov famously said in the theater that a gun shown to the audience in the first act must go off in the second act. So this is a book that's exciting. And so one of the things I would say is, all right, well, anybody who likes thrillers, great. That's an audience. But I think it's interesting the main character is a corrections officer. There's a lot of folks work in public safety, whether they're police officers or security guards or corrections officers or anybody who works in sort of those fields. This seems like something that might be fun reading for them. And so one thing I might ask is like, is the author someone who's had time in that world? If they have, I've gone right to the back of the book now. This is me doing a little bit of live research. Here it is. It says, after high school, I worked on airplanes. And in the 90s, I decided to go to college for law enforcement. And I worked as a part-time police officer in a lockup for juveniles, and then eventually went to work as a corrections officer. Well, now that's a story that links so the author's experience and story is linked to the book he has written. So in one of the things I would say is going to have a Q&A with this author. And I think if it were on video, that'd be great, but it could be written and it should be on the website. Like, and this should be the kind of thing he'd be willing to go to events and talk about. Sir, how did that end up in my book? Right. And, where's the kind of, the truth in it? I remember when watching The Wire, the guy who created it, David Simons, co-created it, had been a reporter for the Baltimore Sun, I think, for like 25 years. And so he had covered the waterfront, drug gangs, politicians, schools, all the things you see in The Wire. And there was just an enormous amount of truth baked into that show. Well, I suspect, although this looks like it's also fun, that there's real insights in here. So I would be saying to the author, let's get some really long, and maybe there's several, like let's sit down and you talk to me, and you know what, we could probably come up with 5 or 10 or 15 topics here, and each one of them could be a 5 or 10 minute kind of like true inspirations that came from his own experiences but have ended up in this story. And you'll often find that the author's own personal story is part of why they're able to write with authority or interest about something. So I would absolutely want this author, Steve, I'm talking to you, Steve, to sit down with somebody and sort of plot out what some of the inspiration points are and see if you can get those into social media posts or Q&As sort of on your website and into some kind of little FAQ that you could use to send to somebody and say, hey, I'd love to come and talk about X. There are patrolman benevolent associations and there are annual conventions of various public safety and law enforcement organizations. And if I were going to, whatever, San Diego for 3 days to get training in something, certification or training in something as an officer, or, a little cocktail party or whatever, I think you would have a real, you'd have a real built-in audience there. And I'm not saying the rest of the world isn't also interested, but these are folks who will recognize the truth of what you've written because you come to this not from, I'm, an author who just had an idea about setting a book in a place that they don't know anything about. You know what it's like. And so
yeah, you come from that world.
Yeah. And so that world will recognize the truth of it. I mean, how many times, Steve, or Brenna, have you read a book about set in a place that you know something about, and you're like, oh, this doesn't feel right to me? Like, I live in New York City, and if stuff is written that's set in New York City and it doesn't look like the author knows what they're talking about, like mostly they've watched cop shows or movies about New York, but it doesn't ring true, I get a little like, On the other hand, if it's like, oh my God, that's exactly what this is like, you get me. And so that for sure would be the kind of primary starting point for me, which is this is not completely a work of imagination from someone who has absolutely no idea what they're talking about. This is a guy who's lived worlds that are part of the world of this book. So tell us more. And then see if you can't go to places where, there are true crime conventions too, for sure. I would also be pitching this to true crime blogs. Not that this is true crime, but the author is. I would start with whatever your long suit is. And in this case, in Steve's case, I think it's that he's knows what he's talking about.
I love that interpretation and some of your ideas for Steve's book. I think, as coming from a reader standpoint, because I'm someone who loves thrillers, I love mystery. And I looked at the cover when we had chosen to feature this book, and I immediately thought of some of my favorite shows or books that I had watched or read recently. And we actually did a illustrated cover for that author, and it turned out beautifully. But it's not something that you normally see, which is kind of like an edgy illustrated cover, which I think is pretty cool. And I kind of immediately thought, like, this gives me the vibe of like a Netflix or like a Hulu show almost. I think it'd be really cool.
Like Shameless, or
Yeah, it's like a crime Shameless almost. But I could see something doing really well on social media. Yes, Ozark is exactly where my mind went. I could see doing like a book trailer, book trailer to be really cool with some actual visuals of like, okay, well, let's see our characters, because clearly this is very like character focused. There's quite a few people on the front cover, so there's definitely going to be some stories that are intertwined, or maybe some different personality types. I think it'd be really cool to see some visuals and almost make it kind of like cinematic, theatrical book trailer, because that's definitely something that I would see and be like, okay, I'm reading this, I'm watching this.
Just let this book dawn on you as you make your way. Like, there's a lot of interest here. There's a lot to focus on just in this image. And you could pan across it, revealing things while, with a little tense music, while saying, like, imagine, right? You've got your book copy, so you can use that as your trailer. I also want to point out another thing that struck me, and it goes like this. Here's this book. Here's the cover. Who's this dog? And who's this dog? Because that's the author's photo.
Oh.
Now, do you notice anything about that dog? This dog is obviously a character in this book, because he wouldn't be on this cover otherwise. And it's obviously the author's a dog guy. So I'm like, who's this dog? And
yeah, he's a little Easter egg.
And he's got this dog right there. So I would be doing some posts, and I'm a dog person who loves a good thriller. You have a chance to get me there. If you have it, you got to use what you have. And this seems to be one of the things that I would want to know more about.
Yes, thank you for the insights, Rick. And for anyone interested in actually finding out more about Steven's book, we will put that down in the description below. You shared this quote with me in one of our other conversations that I love, and I think definitely something for these listeners to take home. You can be busy as an author and not effective. Let's dive a little bit more into just some other kind of strategy that authors can do to be effective in marketing and creating sales for their book. How can authors kind of show up and show out in the best way possible when it comes to marketing?
I mean, one thing I like to think about is, let's say you're busy enough, fortunate enough to have the opportunity to choose between two things you might do on a Saturday for your book. The two metrics that I tend to ask are, how engaged do you think the audience can be or will be, and what footprints will it leave? So if you think I could, like, as you said, it's if I could be part of an event where I'm speaking and I've got 25 people in the room and they're going to be focused on me and engaged, that might be better than being at a table that people are walking by, but there's no real reason for them to listen or stop or talk to me. If I can be on a panel, the people will be engaged. If I have a chance to stand up and speak, even for 5 minutes, if it's some kind of round table or something like that, people can be engaged. So I do think, trying to figure out about engagement is one. Just because you're doing a signing in a bookstore doesn't mean that everybody in the bookstore is going to drop what they're doing, come over and sit and listen to you read a little bit from your book. And then, and by the way, you're only going to sign books for people who buy them. So you might end up, speaking to 10 people and then signing 4 copies. Is that the best use of your time? So think about how much engagement of how many people you think some activity could provide. And the other is footprints. So book signings tend not to leave footprints and by that I mean in the digital world. So you did the signing, it's over. if the bookstore is going to take a little video of you reading a portion of your book and put it on their website, that's footprints. If you ask if you can have a friend take some video of you in a bookstore, now you've got a wall of books behind you. You can see a couple heads. I'm reading from my book. My friend takes a little video, put it up on my book site. We tag the bookstore. The bookstore then reposts it on their social media. Those are footprints. So I am also always looking for the opportunity that either the place I'm going and will do this for me, or I can do it and tag the place, and I have the chance to have this thing I did be visible when it's over.
We have run out of time today. I know we could sit here and chat so much more. We both love marketing and chatting about books. But I just want to thank you so much for hopping on a call with us today and chatting more and sharing some of your expertise and looking at some Palmetto authors with us. It was a lot of fun chatting with you today.
Yep, happy to do it anytime.
Of course. And authors, remember, who are watching this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so you can check out everything that we put up on our YouTube channel here. We'll chat with more authors and experts so you can take away kind of little tidbits about self-publishing and what it looks like to work with Palmetto. So thank you and have a great rest of your day. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.